So last week we started a series of devotions on Hebrews 12, verses 1 through 3. The verse says, "Therefore, since we're surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us." And I said last week, the key word here, the one I want to focus on, is this word perseverance. It's got this idea of hanging in there, of enduring. So the image that's being used is one of a race, a foot race, a long distance race, and the author's saying to us, don't give up, don't ever give up. In fact, that reminds me of a picture that was kind of famous a few years back. Here's this frog being swallowed by a bird, but he's not done yet, right? As long as there's a little will in him, he's going to keep fighting, he's going to fight back. And so that's the idea, that we're supposed to persevere in the Christian faith, that we're supposed to endure. In fact, if we go back to Hebrews, the passage itself, the original context was a group of Christians facing persecution who were tempted to walk away from Jesus. And the whole point of the author is to hang in there, persevere. And one of the motivations, what we looked at last week, is that this great cloud of witnesses. So this is a reference back to what immediately came before this, Hebrews chapter 11, what we know is the great hall of fame of faith. And the idea is that these heroes of the Old Testament are the fans in the stands who are cheering us on as we run our race, and they're encouraging us to not give up, to not quit. And more than that, their stories are witnesses. They tell a story to us. They're ones who've already run the race and completed it, and so they want to encourage us that it's possible that we can complete our race as well. So now I want to move on to verses 2 and 3. So we're supposed to run with perseverance the race set before us by fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith, who for the joy set before him endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured such opposition from sinners, so that you will not grow weary and lose heart. So the second motivation here for us to persevere in this race of faith is that we should fix our eyes on Jesus. Remember when I went out for track as a junior high student, and one of the first pieces of coaching advice that I remember is the coach said, when you're running and you're out there and you're ahead of people, the thing you don't want to do is you don't want to look back. Don't look over your shoulder, because he said you're going to run where you're looking. And if you're looking backwards, you're just going to slow down. So you fix your eyes on the finish line, you fix your eyes on the goal, and that's where you run. And so the author of Hebrews, same advice here. He says, fix your eyes on Jesus. Don't look back. Don't look to the side. Fix your eyes on Jesus and run towards him. And the passage says two things about Jesus. He's the pioneer and he's the perfecter of our faith. So Jesus is the pioneer of faith. The idea here is that what we're being encouraged to do, to persevere, that's what Jesus did. In fact, go back to verse 1. Our key word here is perseverance. That word in the original Hebrew, that's the same word in verse 2 where it says that Jesus, it's translated in English as Jesus endured the cross. So that's the same Hebrew word. What we're being encouraged to do is what Jesus did. He endured the cross. And then again in verse 3, he endured such opposition from sinners. So when Jesus is described as the pioneer of faith, the idea is that he's already done what we're being called to do. He's already endured. He's already persevered. He's finished his race, and now he's turned around and he's encouraging us by saying, look, I've run my race. You run yours. You can do it. So what did Jesus' race look like? Well, it says he endured the cross. Jesus' race meant going to the cross. It meant dying with nails to his wrist, with thorns on his brow. It says that he scorned its shame. So not only dying on the cross as a painful experience, which it was, but it was also a shameful experience. Those who died on a cross were considered the lowest of lows. And so Jesus shouldered that burden. He endured such opposition from sinners. He became the object of mockery and humility. He was spit upon. He was reviled. That's the race that Jesus ran. Now, I don't want to be the kind of pastor who compares every trial that you endure to the trials of Jesus, right? There's a A mindset that might say, every time something difficult comes your way, you say, well, remember what Jesus went through. Jesus went through something so much worse. And, well, it's probable that what Jesus went through is worse. That doesn't mean your pain is not painful. And so the idea here is not just to compare everything to what Jesus did and say, well, look, Jesus did something harder, and so you can buck it up and get through whatever you need to get through. The pain you're experiencing, the trials that you're facing, I have no doubt that they're very real and they're very painful. But Jesus is given to us as an example of someone who endured his test, someone who endured his trial and saw it through to the end. Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane praying, Father, not my will but your own. He could have walked away. Jesus could have pulled the ripcord and called down angels to his side to protect him from the Roman soldiers, but Jesus saw it through. And in that way, he sets an example for us. He endured his trials as an example that we too can endure ours. But that's not all. Not just is Jesus the pioneer of our faith, he's also the perfecter of our faith. And I think that's important. This idea, not just that Jesus has already run his race, but in a sense, he's run our race as well. The key word here at the beginning of verse 3 is consider. In the original Greek, that word is the word we get the word analyze from. And so we're being encouraged not just to look back at Jesus as an example, but we're supposed to consider what he did. We're supposed to analyze the things he's done and the meaning of it. And so when we think about why Jesus went to the cross, and we think about his purpose in doing that, we realize that he was shouldering not his own sins, but our sins. He had no sins of his own that he committed, but he shouldered the burden of our sins. He took on our greatest enemies, death and guilt, and he saw them through to the empty tomb where he defeated death and walked out of his own grave. And so the idea here is that Jesus has already faced our greatest enemies and defeated them. And so as we run our race, we need to remember that Jesus has already done the greatest trial. Jesus has already taken on our greatest enemies and defeated them. And so that's the substance of our faith. That's what our faith is built upon. And so as you face the challenges of life, and as we face the temptations to turn away or to give up, we do so knowing that the greatest challenges have already been met by Jesus. And that's our confidence. That's our faith. That's how we can hold on and keep running. That's how we can never give up. And so let me encourage you this week to just keep running that race, to persevere, to hold on.